I want to take this opportunity to welcome all of us who are joining us live and those of us who are also in the in-person training. Today, as we speak, we have a pandemic that we have never experienced. And we are told that for every generation, we've had a pandemic. For us, it has been COVID. COVID has had a devastating effect to private schools across the country. We've had a lot of challenges in as far as COVID is concerned. When schools were closed, private schools had to send their learners, their teachers, their members of staff home. We had hoped that normalcy will return after 1 month. That was not to be. We expected to come back in June, July, August. That was not to be. Today, we are in October, actually going to November. But then we only have grade 4, class 8, and form 4 in session. When the schools reopened, we asked ourselves very many questions. How are we going to behave? We were told we are operating in the new normal. But then, the new normal is something that we now have to learn as we go to school. Because the behavior that we are going to exhibit, both as teachers, learners, parents, and every other stakeholder, is different from what we have always been told. Teachers, being a teacher, I know we were never trained on how to deal with COVID. But now here we have COVID. What are we going to do in as far as COVID is concerned? So Kenya Private Schools Association has realized that we have challenges that we need to address. There are very many challenges that we continue addressing. But specifically because of this particular meeting, we decided to come up with a program that is going to support our learners, our parents, and our teachers in their mental and psychosocial support that they really require at this point in time. As COVID-19 pandemic continues and schools now in session, the pandemic has had a profound negative impact not only in communities and households, but also on psychosocial well-being of teachers, staff, and learners in schools across the country. The impact will be and continues to be felt differently among the different stakeholders in schools. They face challenges of understanding, absorbing, and dealing with the challenges that COVID-19 is bringing to our world, our country, and to our schools. The different stakeholders, we are unable to understand what is this thing about COVID? Why do we have to behave so differently? In the current circumstances, children have been constrained in terms of access to socialization, playing together, and even physical contact. You can imagine telling children not to share, yet we have always preached to them. It is always good to share, but now they can't share. We have always told our children, work, and no play makes Jack a dull boy. But now we are telling them not to play with each other, not to touch one another. We have even gone further to tell them that you have to cover your mouth with masks. You can imagine that kind of environment that we are now exposing our children to. If we are not going to build the capacities of our private school managers, if we are not going to build the capacities of our teachers in addressing some of these issues in a manner that is understandable, then we are going to have a very frustrated lot in our schools. We also have teachers who have been affected negatively by COVID. In fact, I dare say a majority of our members of staff have been very affected by COVID. So how do we address their concerns in as far as mental and psychosocial aspect is concerned? The purpose of Kpsa engaging psychosocial support give us is to provide our teachers in charge with the necessary capacity that will enable them to understand what COVID-19 is and how it can be prevented, help them manage related stress, fear, and anxiety among learners, parents, and other support staff within the school environment. This session is intended to give our teachers the capacity to be able to address the different stakeholders that we have in school, so that they are able to cope with the new realities. That's why this program that is starting today will continue even in the days to come. This program, with the support of KCB Bank, will run up to the 27th of November. So, ladies and gentlemen, today is not my time. This is a time for the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health, and our special needs team to assist us understand how to handle issues of mental and psychosocial support. So for today's program, we are going to have the Ministry of Health take us through COVID-19 and its impact on mental health among the different private school stakeholders. Then the Ministry of Education is going to come in with private school psychosocial support for the different stakeholders amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Then, of course, we know we have learners in our institutions who have special needs. Those who are geniuses, those who have physical challenges, those who have, all sorts of challenges. So how do we bring all of them on board? How do we get them supported mentally and through the psychosocial support that is required? So, ladies and gentlemen, it's now my humble duty to invite Dr. Anne Mwangi from the Ministry of Health to take us through the first presentation of today. Let's put our hands together for Dr. Anne.
Mental health. One of the things about mental health is that it really determines everything we do. If you are okay, if you are happy, you notice if you wake up happy, you are likely to be happy. You are likely to have a lot of energy. If you wake up and somebody probably says something to you and they spoil your day, you lose the energy to do everything. There are days you wake up, you are so full of energy. And our mental health status really determines how we do things. And when you're thinking about mental health, WHO has tried to define what is mental health. What is mental health? And mental health is when you are able to when you're able to realize your own ability. You're able to cope with normal stresses of life. You work productively, and you're able to contribute to the community. So when an aspect of yourself is affected, your mental health is in a way affected. And one of the things you note about mental health, especially when it gets severe, it is not you who will notice, it is somebody else. Because you even lose your own awareness of how you are. And that is why you see people saying, I think she's not okay. But you yourself, who may be affected, you may think you are fine. And even for children, we need to know that because of this COVID, and COVID has affected all of us, children, adults, all of us alike. But people have different capacity to cope with the different issues of life. So during this crisis, people have gotten stressed, people have gotten worried, and even our own children have had their own issues. Because one, children are used to waking up, going to school. They enjoy their short holidays of 1 month or 3 weeks, they go back to school. But suddenly they have had to stay at home and not knowing when they'll go back to school. So, social impact, closure of schools. And schools are a haven. They are children who the safest place to be in is school. And school is where they have their friends, they have their peers. It's where they get a meal. It is where they even get water and sanitation facilities. There are others, if they are not in school, even accessing water and sanitation facilities is a challenge. So school, so can you imagine the effect of that? Then the children are at home, they don't know how long they are going to be home. Like Mr. Peter said, when we were closing, we thought probably it's March and maybe April, and in May we open and kids are back to school. And we have been there for the last 6 months until October. And even in this October, which is ending tomorrow, we are still not sure when the other classes are going to go back. So there is uncertainty. And that uncertainty is not good for anyone's mental health status. There is idleness. Maybe in the village, children go to the farm, they are engaged. In the city, we almost don't know what to do with the children. Then comes frustrations. Then we have job losses, businesses closed down, incomes went down. Like schools closed, private schools could not pay teachers, they could not pay their support staff, and people are home, they have no money, they have no food. So you can see how COVID affected families. And though sometimes children may not really know what is going on in a family, they can see it on your face. They can read when dad comes home, when mom comes home. When I speak to dad, he speaks back like this. They can read signs. Children are very good in looking at you as a parent and telling that things are not okay. Then the fear of disease and death. Fear of disease, because as much as some people still believe corona is not there, if they got corona, those who have gotten corona, because I know people who have actually gotten corona, it really scares them. And it is not just them, but even us as their friends, because you don't know how it may progress. So the fear, if you're a teacher, if you're a parent, if whoever it is, if I get the disease, I remember one time asking my children, what is your greatest fear about COVID? And my son told me, I fear getting it. Like, and one of my, just before the school closed, my son came from boarding school and came in. It was just like 3 days after COVID had been announced in Kenya, and he feared for us. He feared for us because he thought by the time he come, he'll find we are already infected. So you see, these things children internalize. They don't know when dad leaves the house and goes, maybe he'll get COVID. And you know, as a parent, you may just feel, I'm okay. You wake up, you go to work, but you don't know when you leave your kids, they are actually worried probably you could bring COVID home. And then the reality of the disease. When now the disease gets into a family, mother is sick, father is sick, the child is sick. What about that? What about when we see, luckily now we are not seeing those COVID values. What about when we see those scary COVID values that happened for quite some time? And people cope differently. Children, some people cope, some people have better coping mechanisms, others get just broken down by the issues that they are facing. So I tried to look at the effects of COVID in two, the direct ones and the indirect ones. And one of them is the fear of their own loved ones' safety and well-being. A child fears, mom, dad. What if my mom? What if my dad? What if my grandmother? Whoever is their caretaker. Because as a child, you don't want to lose whoever takes care of you. So there is that fear that they live with. Illness, suffering and death of loved ones. Because as we reopen school, there are some children who will have actually lost their loved ones to COVID. Their mother, their father, their relative, their uncle, their auntie. And then there are some children who also will have had to care for sick family members. Not just those are sick from COVID, but even other sick family members. What about being in quarantine? What about being in isolation because of COVID? What does that mean to the children? What about the stigma? And stigma is real. And you know, one of the things about COVID is that we think it's the disease of that person. So it is so easy to say, msiende kucheza na akina so and so, their father had COVID. It's so easy to say that, but you don't know that tomorrow it could actually be in your own family. So as parents, we really need to be careful also. Let's not stigmatize COVID, because this disease can be in your home, it can be in my home. It is in his home today, tomorrow it's in my home or your home. So let's not create stigma in our children. Recently, I saw someone post a post of a person who had just recovered from COVID. And when their daughter was riding a bike in the estate, then somebody says, don't play with that. Don't play with that one. They have COVID in their home. You see how stigmatizing we have become. That child probably had it with their parents. And then when they had it with their parents, now they come in, because they're trying to protect. Their parents already told them that these people don't play with them, they have COVID. But we need to be careful. There's a lot of stigma, because once you recover from COVID, you are just okay, you can interact with the people, continue doing what other people are doing, wearing a mask, washing hands, sanitizing, social distancing. But we should not look at people who have recovered with COVID and point fingers at them. Indirect lack of food and other basic needs due to economic effects of COVID at family level. Families have gone without food. Families have been affected. Those families have children. We know alcohol has accelerated or increased levels of alcohol and drug abuse. Families have abused. There's more drug abuse and alcohol abuse, not just by parents and caregivers, but even by the children themselves. Our children, you've seen these small clips all over social media where children are being seen drinking alcohol and engaging in all kinds of things. What is the effect of that alcohol in the child that you're going to receive in school? If this child has been drinking themselves since they left school in March, and now you're receiving them in November, assuming, how are you going to deal with that child? Because that's not the same child who left school in March, to go home. So we have to think about these children as well. What about those who have gone through emotional abuse and sexual abuse? Those who have been sexually abused by their neighbors? And just to remind us that the people who abuse children are not strangers. They happen. Strangers do abuse children. But in most cases, it is your neighbor, it is that cousin in your house, it is that nephew of yours who is older. Even boys who have been sodomized. And we shouldn't look at sexual abuse as happening only to girls. Our boys are getting sodomized by those male relatives that we keep in the house. And they don't speak. Because we don't even expect them to be sodomized anyway. So who are they going to tell? Is it dad? Is it mom? Is it auntie? Who? Our house helps, who are teaching our children sexual activity very early in life. What will we do with those children who have undergone emotional abuse? Because besides the sexual, there are also those who have been emotionally abused. What about those who have gotten pregnant during COVID? Some have become mothers during COVID. Others are now pregnant. They are waiting to get babies. What is the effect of all this on their mental health and well-being? Some children in communities where they do an FGM, they have had it now. They have done the FGM. Some have organized for the adults and to get married. What are we going to do with those children? What about lockdown and the reduced socialization, play, physical contact? Our children are getting stressed by these issues. And then the overexposure to social media, especially our adolescents. They are on phone, they are on TV, we are at work, we are here, we don't know what they are watching. Some have already watched pornography, they know everything. When they see you, they know everything. You think you have some innocent children in the house, they know everything, and they know it the bad way. So, the children that will be coming back to school are not the same children that we released in March. That is for a fact. We really need to ask ourselves, how are we going to deal with them? Because we don't want to lose them. We want to bring them back. And then, as parents, you lost your job, and then you have to move your houses. You are living in, let me give an example. You are living in Muthaiga where you could pay 100,000 or 200,000 rent. Now you have to move your family to a smaller house. And you know, sometimes we don't communicate what we are doing with children. Sometimes we handle children like objects. Like there you decide today this kiti nitaweka hapa, kesho nitaiweka hapa. We don't communicate our issues with our children. Because it's good to sit them down and tell them we have lost our job, we have to move to a cheaper house, this is how it's going to be. Some children also have to move schools because maybe they are in an expensive school, parents can't afford it. So they have to move to probably a cheaper school. And then, what does that mean for the children? Especially where they just see a mover come back in front of their house. They are told we are moving, they don't know where, then they move. Some have had to move from the cities to the villages. All these have effects, mental health, not just on children, even on us, adults. But we are thinking about children because sometimes a lot of people ignore what goes on in the children's mind. And what happens to children is that they can absorb, they notice, they absorb, and then they react. They react differently. So you may not expect them even to react today, but they start reacting differently. A child is taken to a school, all of a sudden now they can't even cope in that school. They start having aggressive behavior. A child who was not stealing starts stealing. So we need to be careful that there's changes that have occurred in our children during this COVID will not affect how we handle them in school. And that's why even as teachers, as anyone in the school, we have to know that we are receiving very fragile children back. And so, how do we deal with them? We know some have been abandoned. Parents have abandoned their children, some have been abandoned with their grandmothers, others have been left with their dad alone or with their mom alone. Dad has gone or mom has gone. So what are we going to do with those children? There are those who have had to go and work. Huh? They have gone to work. And even in the places of work, because children should actually ideally not be working. And there is a lot of exploitation in work, in child work. So what happens to those children? What do we do with those boys who are already riding border borders and they have to come back and do KCSE or sit KCPE? What about those that got married and they would like to come back to school? So we really have to think all these scenarios, all these things affect. And these things it's not that they have not been there. They have been there. But because of the prolonged closure of schools, they have been worsened so we have to think of how to deal with them. So children may express their psychological distress in different ways. And some children behave differently. Some will keep quiet. Others will speak. Others will just become difficult. They will lose interest in activities that they previously enjoyed. And every emotion is valid. We should not dismiss. And therefore, teachers and caregivers and everyone else in school should understand. And we treat them with empathy. So let's make our hearts really, really big, especially our teachers, our support staff, because the children you are receiving, they need you to have a very big heart. Don't dismiss them. If you can be that person that they can speak to, kindly be available for them and get to know what they are going through. And you can engage children with creative, interactive activities such as playing, drawing, and there's this therapy called art therapy, where children express themselves through drawings. And when they draw, they're actually able to tell you what they have been going through. You have heard of cases where children have drawn their mother with a big, big mouth like this. Then they tell you it's because my mother always shouts at me. Or you tell a child, just draw yourself and your mother, or they draw themselves here and their mother there at the corner. And then you ask them, why did you draw your mother so far away from yourself? And because she doesn't love me. She doesn't. So children are very genuine. So we can actually get a lot of information from children by how they draw, because they actually express themselves. And then if children are witnessing violence at home, because we know homes have violence, and if they witness violence at home, that trauma, they carry it to school. If a child is in a boarding school, for instance, and now they have to go to school, and they know that every day when dad comes home, he fights mom, they will think that maybe even before the end of this term, they are not even going to be fearing their parents dying from COVID. They'll be fearing their mother being killed by the dad or whichever. So these are the things we need to come close to children and understand what are they going through. Because they may express themselves with disruptive behavior. Maybe a child who was performing very well, now they are not performing well. They may just become don't cares. They just become difficult. And you're wondering what happened to this child when they went home. It's because they internalized things and they are trying to express themselves. Others may have had a sick family. They could have been sick themselves, and they have been to hospital. They have seen people die. They've gone for burials. So all these things have affected them, and they may experience anxiety and therefore may need specialized help. Finally, as I finish, we still know that there is no vaccine yet, no much evidence with the treatment of COVID. So we are not yet out of the woods. And there is still a probability, and a high one, that we could still be having COVID next year, maybe even the year to come. And we still can see, as I showed you that data for global data, that we have had 7 million more cases of COVID in the last 2 weeks, and 10,000 more cases in the last 2 weeks. So, in Kenya. So what do we do? Prevention is key. Kindly, let's apply prevention interventions. Let's wear our masks, let's wash our hands, let's keep social distance. I mentioned this before and I'll mention it again. Children will look to you when deciding how to feel. If you feel calm and prepared, they are likely to feel similarly. If they find the teachers are calm, even if we have come back during COVID and cases are still going up, they will be calm. If they find you are very uncomfortable and you don't know what to do with them, they will equally be disturbed. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. And thank you very much for listening.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? You're good? And I hope those ones who are watching us are also doing well. I'm so honored to be here because I am introducing somebody very dear to me and somebody who's actually going to talk to us about. You can see what is on our what is it called? Our agenda. We're talking about children with special needs and the impact that COVID has had on our children with special needs. And the fact that they're still going to go out there and come to your schools. The question is, are you ready for them? Yeah? Are we ready for children with special needs to come back to school? And are you equipped to be able to give them these coping mechanisms that we are talking about? Yeah, we were told about children. Regular children will show fear. They will show anxiety. If children have been sexually abused, they can be able actually to kind of talk about it. But what about our children who are non-verbal? How will they express themselves? Yeah? How will they show that they have been abused? How will they be able to communicate? Do we have counselors who are trained in sign language? Can they interpret for a child with special needs? I'm sure they do. But do we have enough to go around all the schools? Do we have counselors who actually have been equipped with skills of working with children with neurodiversity? A child with Down syndrome, a child with autism, a child with intellectual disabilities. Do we have counselors who are equipped to work with these children? Because they are going to go back to school just like the other children. So it's my pleasure right now to introduce to you a very superwoman here. Her name is called Sylvia Mora. And I'm just going to give you a little bit about Sylvia, information about Sylvia. She's an entrepreneur and she's also a philanthropist. Yeah? She's started an organization called Andy Speaks for persons with disabilities, with special needs. Yeah? And the main aim is for inclusion. She advocates for inclusion. Sylvia is a mother of 3 boys. 2 of them are on the spectrum. So she's going to talk to you about her experience of having these children at home during the COVID time. And also, she will talk to you also as a mother of these children who will go into the schools. As directors, are you ready to receive our children?
Let's speak COVID-19. Our friend who just showed up without notice. In our families, this is something that has really been of great and adverse effects in terms of we are not ready. If you look at a special needs person, you find that they actually thrive through routine. And in this case, we didn't have notice because one day we were in school, the next day, sorry, I don't have a presentation. So I'll just be speaking to you from my heart and in general from the previous also experiences that we've had. You find that we did not have time to prepare our kids. Even when they're in school, we always have to tell them like a week or 2 in advance. School is about to resume, school is about to close. Whatever change you want to introduce in their lives, it's always advisable to inform them in advance so they're mentally prepared for it, because it is not as easy for them as our typical children. So COVID-19 happened and all of a sudden there is no school, there is no playing, there is no going outside. So put yourself in the shoes of this autistic person whose life has just been disoriented. And now they cannot even have the bare minimum of the weekend regular, I'll go to church, I'll hang out with my friends, to be the replacement of what is closer to them as when schools closed. So that means that is a new challenge that has been introduced to their life. We have the therapy services which helps them
align with everything else that goes on in school. That is because of the hyperactivity, they depend on the speech therapy to be able to communicate. Depend on occupational therapy to just align their performance so that they're able to sit in class or even sit at home and just be able to participate. And for us parents, you find most of us have lost our jobs, and now we're being forced to take up all the duties of the support system, because with COVID, that means even going to hospital for the services that we so desperately need every week has been disconnected. So as a parent, now I have to take replacement of 5 people who helped me raise this child. That we're talking about the speech therapists, the occupational therapist. I still have to continue being the parent that this child knows. I have to start being the teacher. And I have to replace all that with a playmate and still continue as a parent to provide for this child, offer them support, guarantee, and try and communicate what is going on. As she earlier mentioned, our children learn differently in terms of they understand through either vocal, tactile, and music a lot of the times. Now here it is, we're trying to explain why you're not able to go out and COVID-19, something they cannot see, smell, touch, because senses is one of the things that they use to learn most of the times. So it has been something that very, very hard for us back at home when we're trying to tell the child, you cannot go out because you cannot be close to your parents because there is this thing that is called COVID-19, and your child cannot understand. For the few who caught the interview I had with Citizen TV, which they came to our lives and you had a snippet of what it is like trying to contain these kids in a space. Most of us live in apartments. Some of us don't even have the space of the luxury of saying, I can take them out to the field to play. So there is all this hyperactivity that is being constrained in their bodies, and that results to sensory overload. This is now another side effect of what COVID-19 has brought. Because when you have sensory overload, that means you cannot communicate, you cannot give them any instructions. As a parent, I'm not skilled to teach my children. In my case, I have 2. Autism, he learns more about things through music. I have this other child who's both left and right-handed. I have no idea how to teach him which hand he's supposed to work with. Considering in school, maybe the teacher knows, they understand how they do it. But for me, when it comes home, he keeps changing. He learns differently. He wants to touch everything. And trying to even just set that schedule that, oh, I'll start with this child, then move to this child. And also remember, I have a typical teenager. So I'm still having to handle that teenage life. And I'm a single parent. And I'm a business person. So all these things are coming in one package. And you're supposed to deliver just because we need to keep everything as normal as possible. So this is where the psychosocial support comes in. For us as caregivers, you find that this is overwhelming, extremely overwhelming. Imagine a person trying to teach a dyslexic child. We don't have the skills to do that. I'm being forced to do occupational therapy at home. What if it's a cerebral palsy parent? They touch the wrong nerve. You will end up damaging your child even more. Speech therapy, I have no idea how to do it. I'll just try download what I can and try and ape what I am seeing. And when you go onto the internet, what is there? We're talking about diction of US English, Britain English. What is that the same English we are having in our curriculum? Let's look at the blind, the braille, the support, and all the assistive devices that they need. That's in school. It's locked up in school. We are here at home, supposed to be continuing with the same. I cannot afford it. If we talk about digital learning, yes, the government came in and placed the supplement for the typical children. What about our children? How will they learn? We tried it. My school, where the children are, they tried sending me homework. I have no idea how I'll get this child composed enough to just color, because at the age of 10, my son still struggles with fine motor skills. He cannot color within the borders that are supposed to. I'll get frustrated because I'm trying to time. I'll have this child for this period of time, move to the next child, rotate. I don't even have the assistive devices to help them with the fine motor skills that they need to ensure that they are continuing to be engaged and they're able to just maintain all that they have learned. The other thing that comes out of all of this is regression. My son started picking up behaviors we have forgotten a long time ago. Chewing plastic, biting his hands, hitting himself, becoming violent. Yet we are supposed to continue with life as usual, still contained in the same space, and deliver as a parent to all our children equally. So these are a lot of the challenges that we face while we're at home. But who knows that? Who's there to support you? Do we have even the psychosocial support to be able to deal with all of this? These are the questions that we ask. Schools are opening. Are they even ready? My son cannot wear a mask for more than half an hour. Part of the regression because of the lack of therapy, he's drooling. I have to change up to 5 masks if we're walking around. He gets tired, he removes it. That means I either have to lock him in the car and cancel everything or turn around and go back. That is our reality in our life of special needs parenting. So when we look at all this that is being done, all we're asking all the institutions, as you're making plans, as you're looking at all these things in detail, at least have inclusion, understand from where we're coming from, where we are, and how we can work in partnership moving forward. When we're talking about IEPs in the regular setting, include us as parents. Let's understand where you are with our children. Let us participate. Let us see how you do things so that we, as a group and as a team, we will be able to raise our children together. And that unity will ensure greater and faster growth and development of our children. Other than this is school, this is home, and there is nowhere where we're crossing, so that our children will be able to also understand that we are able to work together. Because if you look at even that when we're trying to work digitally, how many can afford more than one gadget? If I say, oh, this child will have this class, this one will have this other one, how many gadgets can we have? How many can access data to be able to do online classes? See, these are all the other things that are burdens to us. For me, my children spend around 15,000 per month on medication, only medication, just to keep them alive. And if they miss it within 48 hours, I'm guaranteed I'll be in HDU or ICU. Even the government doesn't support me with that as a parent. So where are my priorities? Will I feed these children? Will I buy medicine? Will I buy the support system that they require? Will I go to work to ensure at least they have everything that they need, and at the same time not lose myself as a parent? That is usually the greater question that I've posed to you. Thank you.
I want us to invite the next presenter, Madam Salome. Salome is the head of guidance and counseling at the Ministry of Education. Dr. Ann had said that one of the areas that we now need to strengthen in our institutions is the issues of counseling. Because of the challenges, mental and psychosocial challenges that we've gone through, and we are still going through, our students are going through, the people that we work with are going through, back in our families, we are also parents, we are also relatives to others. An area that Dr. talked about that we need to strengthen more is the area of guidance and counseling. We really need to train ourselves on how to do a lot of counseling. So allow me invite Madam Salome, who is going to take us through how do we conduct, we are not professional counselors, but how do we now go about it now that we have to do it in one way or another to kind of manage this issue of mental and psychosocial support. So let's put our hands together even as we usher in Madam Salome for her presentation.
When schools closed after COVID, that was in March 2020, the Ministry of Education sat and they also came up with some protocols that were supposed to be used for learners. There's some modules. There were protocols for learners, for parents, for teachers, and also for the school heads. They're in our website. And these protocols, out of that, what has really been emphasized on is the issue of psychosocial support, the guidance and counseling we are talking about. So that when the guidance and counseling is strengthened, then at the end of the day, we'll be able to support teachers. Because like Dr. said, the children we are getting to school are not the same ones who went home in March. A lot of things have happened. Socially, they have been affected. The families have been affected. There are issues of grief and loss that could have affected this child. So when they come back, they're totally different. So it has been left for the schools through the guidance and counseling department to be able to handle these issues so that this child are able to adjust and be able to move on. So every school, there's an expectation that there's a guidance and counseling department which has a head, a teacher who is in charge of guidance and counseling. And again, the teacher, for the teacher to be able to do that, or for the schools to be able to do that, a guidance and counseling committee is also very, very, very important, where we have diverse personnel who are able to meet the needs of the children. Children have the social needs in terms of interpersonal relationships. They also have the emotional needs. They come home, they're hungry or they're angry. They have emotional needs. They also have the psychological needs, the career issues. So the guidance and counseling department should take care of all these needs, their personal needs that the child has or the learners have. They have also social needs, they have career needs, they have health needs, they have moral needs, the intellectual needs. So when this committee is set, then through the committee, then that can be achieved. After the committee, then, and the head of the chair of that committee should be the school head. The principal or the head teacher should be the one who is the chairman of that department. So after that, also to be able to operationalize, then there is also need to have the peer counselors. Dr. talked about it. Peer counselors are, you find that even with adults and even with children, it would be very easy for me to share my problem with a peer. The same case with children. It would be easy for them to share an issue, and it would also be very easy for a colleague or a classmate or an age mate to actually be able to know that so and so has a problem. So through the peer counselors, again, the teachers are able to know if there are issues, if their capacity build, these learners, then they can be able to support that department so that there are so many, the issues are being sorted right from the classroom. So if there are issues that cannot be sorted from there, then we have now the head of department who should be able to carry out. And that is also very, 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 very important, because it is through that channel of guidance and counseling that we will be able to achieve the psychosocial support. Then we're asking ourselves then, what is this psychosocial support we are talking about? And when we talk about psychosocial support, it is that assistance that is given to individuals who have gone through social and mental issues. We are looking at COVID, and it's because of the protocols or because of the containment measures, we cannot interact. So in terms of play, in terms of church, in terms of those social activities, we have not been able, or our children have not been able to do it. So socially, we have been affected. Those needs that we meet or our children meet when they interact with each other socially, they have not been met. And therefore, they bring a lot of disturbance to the children. So when we talk about psychosocial support, it is that assistance that is given to help this person who has social issues to deal with it, so that they're able to cope with the challenges that could be there. Because sometimes they may not understand, why are we being locked into the house? Why shouldn't we go out? And therefore, again, giving them information becomes very, very important. So then how do we as school or as learning institutions implement then this psychosocial support? One of the ways is through the guidance and counseling. So when we know that the children have gone through needs, they have the social needs, or they have the social impact, or they have the psychological impact, then through programs in the guidance and counseling department, then we can be able to organize for programs. Something that would help is even a topic like interpersonal relationships. How do I relate with myself? How do I relate with other people? I have a conflict. Dr. talked about the art therapy. You tell a child to draw their family, and they are drawing the family. They're not together. One will draw. If the family is together, they will be collectively together, maybe around a table or in a sitting room. Another one will draw the father at the right corner, the sister at the right corner. So it means that there is something. So in that way, could be this child has a personal issue or a family issue. Then through individual counseling in the department, that can be assisted, because there are those personal issues that I could be going through and I don't want anyone else to hear. There is that problem that is common when we talk about group guidance. We have all gone through challenges of COVID. Like when you think about the children who are already in school, the grade 4, they could have gone through the same challenge but differently. But now, we are the CBC pioneer. What are our challenges? There's something in common. So in group counseling or in group guidance, the people with the same problem are put together and they can be assisted to be able to cope. And one thing that is very, very important is allowing them to share. Because when we allow them to share, they're able to ventilate those emotions. My father keep on fighting my mother, or my father ran away during COVID, they'll be able to share. And one, again, very important thing is the issue of now, again, confidentiality. So that whatever is discussed in that small little group, then we keep it there. So that, again, like that time was talking about issues of stigma, I'll share in the group, this small child will share, and baba yangu alikuwa kwa isolation, alipata COVID. So they need to be taught about confidentiality, so that on parade or on the streets the following day, they're not talking about, hey, Baba Salome alikuwa na COVID. They'll stigmatize that child. So group guidance is also very, very, very important. And these group guidance sessions, they will be informed by the needs the teachers have been able to observe. I was thinking about the challenges the children in the urban centers are going through. It's totally different from what is happening in the village. 2 weeks ago, I was in a school in the village, and the grade 4 told me what really has affected them during COVID ni kufanyishwa kazi nyingi. Tulipanda mboga, tukamwagilia maji, nikaangalia mtoto, I was sweeping all the time, So for them, I realized the value for work is different. Yet for an urban school, the challenges will be different. So the moment we allow them to share what they are going through, then it becomes easy for them to come to terms with what is happening to them. And there's also the issue of normalcy. Kumbe Anne is going through what I am going through. So John and Ogutu is going through what I'm going through. So then it brings a lot of therapeutic, it becomes a therapeutic session, and it also brings a lot of healing. So the group guidance is, again, very, very, very important. The individual counseling is also very, very important. Something also that is also very, very important, so on offering psychosocial support, it is also having other teachers besides the ones in the committee, being capacity built on issues of guidance and counseling. I know for teachers, in college, we will do 1 unit of guidance and counseling, and maybe not even remember so much. So again, if we're able to organize seminars and workshops for guidance and counseling teachers, then they would be equipped. In those forums, they would also be helped to sort out their own issues. Because we say in counseling, you can only take somebody so far where you are. And we all have issues. Even if you're the head of department, or you are the CEO in the school, or the principal, we still all have issues. So in those forums, then we also assisted as adults, as the caregivers, as the leaders, to sort out our own issues, so that by the time you get now to the children or the parents, then you'll not be having, again, issues. So capacity building for the teacher counselors, capacity building for the peer counselors would also be very, very helpful for us to be able to offer this psychosocial support. The other thing that is also important is some need assessment. What is our need? And this can be done through observation, or through questionnaires, or through group simulations, where people different groups will sit and we can be able to tell what exactly is ailing our class 8, or what is ailing our grade 4, especially the children who are already in school. So that way we can be able to offer that psychosocial support. I want us to think about pre-COVID, and now COVID, and after COVID. Think about yourself as that basket. Before COVID, everything seemed okay. But after COVID, the basket is getting torn. There's too much that we have carried in terms of our psychological well-being, in terms of the experiences that we are going through at a personal level, at a school level, at a family level, at a community level, and also at a nation level. But again, we are saying, much as COVID has put us in the second basket, we would need now, through psychosocial support, we can be able to attempt to mend that basket. So that I have emotional issues, but through psychosocial support, where I've been able to share, where I've gotten self-awareness, I'm able to mend this basket of mine, so that even when I even go back to school as a teacher, or when I take my child to school as a parent, or as a child when I go back to school, then I will be able to start mending or have that awareness. Because again, something else that is also important when it comes to offering that psychosocial support is that we need to be patient with one another. We have suffered differently. We have personalities who are introverts, so they will not say, Anne can see Salome has a problem, but I'll not tell her what I'm going through. But since we are in a work environment, I expect that my teachers perform the way they used to do before. But a lot has happened, and now my teachers are there. They are ailing, they are suffering. So again, the issue of patience, so that we are able again to help each other mend the pieces, and then be able, we may not get an intact basket, but at least something that we can be able to move on with. Some people feed from a group. Teachers, we teach, and you know, when the moment you go to that class, and after those 40 minutes, you are very energized to move on. But this has not been happening. And even when it's happening now, there are so many restrictions. So that might affect the way we look at things and the way we function. So psychosocial support helps people to deal with difficult situations, because when there is psychosocial support, that assistance given, I'll be able to understand why I am behaving the way I am doing. Maybe I don't know why I'm not sleeping enough, or my appetite has gone. But through a psychosocial support program where I have been empowered, or I have had insights on what is happening, especially like, for example, the effect of COVID, then I am in the awareness. So COVID-19 pandemic disrupted the normal way of life, and this has affected the mental well-being, and really talked about that. So, and like we said, even before COVID-19, we had a lot of mental health issues, which were not sorted, but maybe they have been aggravated by COVID-19. So that is why, again, the issues of psychosocial support need to be upscaled. Guidance and counseling in our learning institution needs to be strengthened. The parents also need to be empowered on how we need to take care of our children, so that we are able to move on. So let us look at that diagram. And basically, this is what happens when we have psychosocial support and when we don't have the psychosocial support. At the center, it is me, you, the parent, the learner, the teacher, the person in the community, a Kenyan. Then through COVID-19 and other mental health issues that will come with it, we have been disabled in many ways. We cannot do things normally. We cannot interact the way we used to. We may not even be able to go to school meetings. We may not even have seminars the way we used to do. And that has brought a lot of loneliness. I feel alone. Like I said, there are people who feed from other people by service. But now it's a bit limiting. So there's uncontrolled fear. COVID-19 has brought uncontrolled fear, that I have so much phobia that I don't even want. Actually, there are parents who haven't taken their children back to school because the fear is too much. There's a lot of phobia. Then there's the pervasive anxiety. I am too anxious. And what happens with anxiety? It does not. It disrupts the mental functioning or the well-being, the functioning of the individual. Then we also have frustrations and boredom. I think in one of the effects Dr. talked about, there was issue of frustration and boredom. I'm used to a routine of waking up to go to work, but it's not there. So when all this happens, we need to bounce back, like in the basket. The basket is torn, we need to mend that basket. So the issue of resilience and social support. Social support is key. And psychosocial support is part of a social support system. And when we get social support system, we are able to bounce back. That is the resilience. We are, by opening schools, we are bouncing back with challenges, but we are there. We have opened the schools. We are bouncing back, but again in a new normal. So when there is a social support, then you find that there will be significant lifestyle change. adapting to change is also another very important thing, even moving forward with COVID-19. There are so many things that we need to adapt to, like even just wearing this mask, washing our hands, and the social distance, and all those protocols that are there that we need to, that has changed our way of doing things. So when people get social support, there'll be that positive, significant life change. But when there's inadequate information, when there's no social support, then you end up having a lot of psychiatric conditions. That there are a lot of cases of depression, or a lot of cases of suicide, a lot of cases of homicide, because all this has affected the well-being, and therefore the mental health issues are much, much more. So it is important that the psychosocial support is given so that we are able to significantly, there'll be a significant lifestyle change, and we'll be able to move on. We'll be able to move on even with COVID. Yeah, then how do we offer psychosocial support to children? Yeah, explain to them the facts about COVID-19. Anne talked about that. Dr. Ali talked about that. Let them know the facts about it. Some children who are telling me, they're in class and some children are not wearing the mask, and the child is saying, no, corona iliisha. You have even heard people saying corona iko kwa TV, sindio? Yeah, let them know it is still there, and the facts about it. Why are we wearing masks? Like what Anne took us through. How does corona spread? When they have the facts, we say information is power, and when people have information, they're able to make informed choices. So that when that child is putting on their mask, they actually know the reason why they're putting on their mask. Assist them to understand the experience they are going through is normal. This is very, very, very important. When they feel irritable, when they feel like they don't want to go to school, when they feel like they don't want to talk to anyone, whatever they could be going through is quite normal to this abnormal situation. I would want to play with my friend. There's one child who said, it was sometimes in June, and the mother just took them out and they walked. And she said, I never knew I would see the world again. Because they had been locked in the house. And you can imagine, this is a 6-year-old child, you can imagine how much torturous it had been for her to be just in the house. Until when they got out of the gate and they took her walk, she said that I never knew I would see this world again. And I'm sure even when they're in school, they're saying they never knew they would come back to school again, So allow them to share their stories. Stories are therapeutic. When we give our own stories, they're very, very, very therapeutic. One is able to get out. And when we allow them to give the stories and we use the skill of active listening without interrupting them, the information is able to flow. And whatever could have been an issue, they're also able to share. Yeah, using art, music, poems, pictures, and painting. The module for the learners is very good for the teachers. Please just look at it. It's very, very good, and it's talking about these therapeutic activities like the art, the music, the poem, the pictures, the painting that would help the children to improve. The class 3, the 3-year-old may not tell you exactly what happened, but they can be able to draw. Role play is also very, very powerful. Allow them to act. How was the holiday like? And they'll be able to role play. Creating for them a safe space to share is very, very, very important. I like what the ECD, the small children, the teachers do to the children in the morning when they come. And they will share what has happened throughout the week. So by the time they start Monday classes, kulikuwa na issues za holiday that weekend, they're able to come to terms with it and they're able to move. So creating this safe space and also equipping them with life skills. Life skills are key. It's very, very important. I don't know whether we still teach them in the schools. I know there was a syllabus on life skills, but those skills now we need them like before. So skills of the life skills are categorized into 3 just to take us through a bit. There are skills of knowing and living with self. Those are the self-awareness skills, where you help them understand who they are. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my opportunities? What are my threats? Those bits of self-awareness. Why do I react the way I do? Some children, again, depending on how they have been socialized in their homes, they might be very aggressive. If this is a child and she has grown up in a very aggressive environment, you might find that even in her interactions with others, she's very, very aggressive. So helping them to understand that, and also how to handle emotions. You are having maybe the class 8, the preteens, they have their own developmental challenge. You say it's a time of storm and stress. Already their body changes, their hormonal changes is bringing issues. So if there's something to add to that, then it becomes quite difficult. So helping them to understand these emotions and how they need to deal with those emotions is also very powerful. And how they cope with stress. And for example, the COVID-19 stress, how do they cope with it? So the skills of knowing and living with others is basically the interpersonal skills, where we talk about empathy. Empathy is feeling with. Instead of stigmatizing that child whose father had corona, can we feel with that child? When we have empathy, we feel with the other person, we get into their shoe, and we are able to feel the way they are feeling. So that way, when they have empathy, the skill of empathy, they are able to relate very well with each other. So effective communication is also very, very important. Effective communication. Are they able to really communicate what they are going through, either through art or through songs or through poems? Assertiveness is key, especially when it comes to issues of child abuse. When they are taught they are the skill of assertiveness, they're able to say no and mean it. Friendship formation and maintenance. We are all social beings. So the issue of forming friends and maintaining friendship. Negotiation skills are also very important. And then nonviolent conflict. Should be conflict resolution. Nonviolent conflict resolution. Sorry, not relationships. Resolution. We don't have to fight. But again, remember, these children are coming from an environment, so they could have picked violence. The best way how my father sorts out an issue with my dad is through fighting or verbal abuse. So they could be coming from that environment. So it's the responsibility for us as teachers to help them acquire that skill of nonviolent conflict resolution, that we can still communicate, we can forgive each other, we can share with each other what we are going through. Then there's a life skill on creative thinking. This includes decision making, critical thinking, and problem solving. So just giving them an activity where they can come up with a solution. Case studies of COVID-19. If you're in this situation, just coming up with a case study and letting them discuss, that would really help. And giving them challenging activities that would help them enhance their critical thinking skills would also be important. So as a caregiver also, we are saying we need to be keen with any form of behavior change. I think Daktari talked about that. Any form of behavior change. And especially when it comes to like something like even substance abuse or even sexual abuse. If you have an intuition that something is wrong, don't take it for granted. My son, could this child be taking bangi, or could this child have been sexually assaulted during corona? It's good that we don't take for granted any form of behavior change. Having a routine and doing things together, that's also important. Schools, we are good at that, the routines. But again, you may find that you're having the routine in school, but the home it is disrupted, there's no routine. You can also help them transfer the knowledge they have learned from home to school. Teach them about abuse and how to protect themselves from abuse. The skill of assertiveness is very, very important. We also teach them on how to protect themselves from emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and also drug abuse. Basically, is teaching them on issues of abuse. Can they be able to negotiate for themselves? Can they be able to express themselves? Are they able to use the skill of effective communication in instances that could bring about abuse? The other thing that is also very important is the issue of modeling. As a school leader, as a teacher, as a parent, as a caregiver, modeling is key. And said, man can see, man can do. So it's very, very important that we model. What do I say? Even when schools are opened as a teacher, what am I telling the other children? You know? Am I saying hakuna corona and that's why as a teacher I don't have my mask on? Or what is this that I'm telling? Because remember, as a teacher, as a parent, we have a lot of influence on what we do and say in the community, in the schools, in our homes. So the issue of modeling is very, 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 very important. Modeling that positive behavior. Be the good example. If you're telling them to wear a mask, then I need to be the example as a teacher. I need to be the example as a parent. I need to be the example as a school leader at that particular time. So that when we model this positive behavior, it will be very easy to influence them to actually follow the guidelines, for example. So modeling is very, 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 very important. So I want to talk about something here about the brain and COVID-19 stress. And not only COVID-19 stress, generally with stress. So when it comes to issues of stress and trauma, there's a way the brain operates. So we have this, the green part, call it the frontal lobe, which is responsible for the rational decision making, that I'm able to think, right, I know I need to have my mask on, so I need to have it on. I know I need to avoid a social place, so I need to, that kind of rational thinking. We are in this COVID-19, but we have open schools, so what do we need to do? That orange or which color, yellow, the orange one is, we call it the emotional brain. This is where the emotions are stored. I'm sad, I am angry, I am guilty, our feelings of rejection. And then we have the stem. The stem is called the survival brain. So whenever there's a crisis of whatever nature, our brain responds by survival. We want to look for safety. So we either fight, flight, freeze, or submit. So this coronavirus stress and trauma has put our mind at the survival. We want to fight or flight. Usually we are fighting. So the mind ends up being in a hyper-arousal moment, or we are hyper-aroused. So we are too much alert. And that is why even when, even now, by the way, depending, the perception for different people has changed about coronavirus. But if you remember initially at 3 o'clock, that is when our CS was announcing the numbers, isn't it? And everybody, including a 3-year-old, will know, leo numbers zilikuwa ngapi? There were 20, because we were so alert, so much alert. So you find that when we are operating with the survival brain, what happens to the rational brain is that it shuts. So you find that if we don't have awareness, we might not be able to be rational. But we are saying, for us to be able to move on, we need to engage the rational brain, the frontal lobe. So that what is the right thing, what is rational to do right now? We have open school. What is the right thing to do now? We may not have liked it, but we are in this situation now. What is the right thing to do? So when we have awareness, we can be able to shift, so that we are not always in that running mood or that hyper-aroused mood that sometimes will shut the frontal lobe and we are not able to do what we are supposed to do. You remember even some people are not in the hospitals, they complain that people are not coming to the hospital because I have phobia, I am so alert or I'm so scared that if I come for my clinic and maybe I'm coming for my medication, I will get coronavirus. But again, we are saying when we have that awareness, then we need to engage. I need to go for my clinics. Kids need to come to school, and we need to do what we are supposed to do with the children. So there's a way the brain works, but when we have awareness, we can consciously, very intentionally control how the brain works, because we have the capacity to do that. So that if we are able to sit and actually talk to ourselves that this is the right thing to do right now. Then we're also talking about post-COVID traumatic growth. You remember the baskets? That is a desert, but there's a plant that is growing, isn't it? Yeah, so that is the era of COVID, but we have opened schools. We are bouncing back, we have gone back to work. Our learners have come to school, our schools have opened, the teachers have come back to school. So this is what we call the post-COVID trauma growth, that we need to bounce back. And when we talk about this post-COVID trauma growth, it is the ability to bounce back. And we thank God we are already there, and the Kpsa have taken it up, and especially on issues of psychosocial, so that we get empowered and we are able to move on. So post-trauma growth is a positive psychological change experienced as a result of adversity and other challenges in order to rise to a high level of functioning. We would want to open the schools fully, that high level function. We would want to get there. So with post-trauma growth, that positive psychological change, we need to be positive, even moving forward. Yeah, people get scared, the numbers are going high and all these things, that can be a voice that can push us down, go back and sink in our torn baskets. But we need to have this post-traumatic growth. So it is the ability to bounce back by overcoming the challenges and adjusting to the new normal. Very, very, very important. That in the midst of the challenges that we are experiencing, we can still be able to bounce back. The resilience, we can be able to bounce back and move on. What we may realize is that the tree, it may not grow like the others. The others were big na zimekauka, but now this one is growing. And you can see it's in a desert, so it's not going to be easy. But when we work on our mind, we can be able to still thrive and still be able to achieve the goals and objectives of learning. So facing a life-threatening situation would require courage, and with courage, there is growth. We are in schools already, so we need to have that courage. We need to put that courage. We need to have that courage so that we are able to grow, we are able to thrive, even with these challenges. So this eventually brings about transformation, that there is change. We are not in that desert, we are not at home, but there's change. So then, for us to achieve this post-COVID-19 trauma growth, we are saying we need to accept the situation we are in. Yeah, we keep on wishing for the old ways, yet it's not easy, We will treasure those days. We never used to have masks, and we used to have parties, and we used to have games in school. But again, we are saying we accept this situation we are in, and we adjust to it. So we need to be patient with each other. This is very, very important. I always tell people we are in a difficult space, a very challenging space, but we don't need to stress each other, but be patient and be supportive to one another. That little child at home, that little child at school, that colleague at work, that family member, we need to be patient with each other. We need to appreciate what we can change and accept what we cannot. We all would wish COVID-19 away, but it's here with us, and Dr. is saying it might even be here with us next year, but one we never know. So we need to appreciate what we can change. We can adjust, we can adapt to it, but we may not change so many facts about it. We need to purpose to bounce back. It has to be intentional that we will make it. We need to have that positive self-talk. Because the moment we have positive self-talk, then we get solutions to challenges. The moment I have negative self-talk, I will see problems all the time. And remember, we have said the you, me is very, very, very important, because we are a point of influence. We are leaders at different levels. We are saying that the school leaders play a very key role in helping everyone in the school adapt and adjust. And leadership, it's about taking people where they ought to be, not necessarily where they want to be. So the leader is a very, very important person in terms of influencing behavior. And that's why we say modeling is key. So it's important that we appreciate and know as leaders, we have a key role in the adjustment and the the adjustment and also the adaptation and also the ability to bounce back. So we need to be patient with each other. We may not know what everybody else has gone through, but we need to be patient with each other. We could be having that very good teacher, but morale yake imeenda chini. Let's be patient with them and find out what could be happening. They could be having issues that are affecting them. So what I want us to note that is performance goes down with the change. You know, you can see the arrow, the performance goes down. And time, it also takes time. So the issue of time, and you may find that for some people, they could be at transformation and then they go back to resistance. You know, like what is the perception now? You know, the perception about Corona today. You know, it's like, I call it Papa TV. You know, those stories that people are giving. So it may not, the change process may not be linear that way. So it can keep on coming. But again, for us, we are saying, for us to be able to maintain, to acquire that post-trauma growth, then we would need to start integrating these new changes so that eventually we'll be able to adjust and we'll be able to move on. Yeah, so in conclusion, we are saying that we all have a role in offering support to each other at this very difficult time. We need to really support each other. In whatever small little way, we have a responsibility. And we also have the potential to adapt to the new normal. Tukishikana pamoja tutashinda, you know? Yeah, when we have this kind of forums where we are sharing and we are empowering each other and we are giving each other support, then we'll be able to adapt and be able to move on. So dealing with psychosocial issues needs to be an intention. It needs to be an intention. That I am keen to know how my teachers are doing. I am keen to know what is happening with parents, what is happening with learners, and even my neighbors, wherever I am. Change is not easy. It's not easily acceptable, but we are saying how we manage it is very, very, very important. Yeah, so God bless you.